So I'd like to start this video off by half apologizing. I don't know how many of you felt about my last video about the Terror of Darkshore cinematic, but I am not that video's biggest fan. I don't think I spent enough time actually discussing anything, and as someone who isn't really the biggest fan of reaction videos, I was trying something new, and I don't think it went that well. Well, today we're going to be talking about the Lost Honor cinematic, and we're going to dive into it, and we're going to talk about it like we actually care, damn it. Which means that you definitely need to watch it before you watch this. So as usual, link in the description, go take a peek, come right back here, because we got some things to talk about. Great. Now that that's all sorted, let's get into it, because this cinematic is beautiful, and I think it draws a lot of parallels to how players actually feel about the conflict and the high emotions that are involved. So we're going to start out with a nice shot of the Stormwind docks. The shots and the music in this cinematic are amazing. The score sets the scene fantastically and really puts you in a somber headspace. There's a sad air, and not only because of the bodies that you see littering the dock, but because if you're an Alliance player, you can see firsthand the major toll that this war is taking on your side. As it zooms out, we see that Anduin is staying there, and he's feeling all these things for his kingdom that you're supposed to be feeling. Now, add on top of that, all the guilt he probably feels for all the dead. The horrors of the war may have taken place across the sea at the World Tree, but the influence of war never stays where it physically takes place. And the hopelessness is confirmed when Manduin's best friend comes up to tell us some tragic news.
That's the last of the soldiers. We'll be calling up farmers next.
Those soldiers that you see out on the dock, they're the last that Stormwind has to offer, and Fluffy Boy Incarnate says that they'll have to call farmers up next, which adds another layer of trouble if you have been to Westfall recently. Those farmers that they're gonna need to call on, they're starving, they're impoverished, and they're mad at a city that left them to rot, sending only soldiers to fight the Defias instead of any aid for the starving. I have no idea if Blizzard's gonna take this into account at any point, but when it comes time, I hope they don't gloss over it, because it's the connections like these that make the world feel so much more alive. Also, side note, I don't know if you caught it, but I swear to God, Gen says mexed instead of next. Just listen again.
We'll be calling up farmers next.
It immediately threw me off the first time, and I just hear it. I hear it every time I watch this. Also, I'm not going to move past Anduin's chin fluff. He's going to be a bearded man yet. But it's this next line that I think draws a lot of parallels between players and the cinematic.
When this war began, I thought we were fighting for peace. But we're just fighting.
You're doing all you can to stop her, Your Majesty.
Anduin says that they're just fighting. What I want you to watch in this cinematic are these two opposing ideals that I think rear their head quite often. Anduin wants peace. He wants people to work together to fight off whatever major evil is affecting the world. And trust me, there's always evil affecting the world. This is the mindset of a lot of players that I've talked to that didn't start in vanilla, and that crowd is obviously getting larger and larger as time goes on. Many of those people feel less tied to their faction and more tied to Azeroth itself. They want to fight the big bad. They want to cleanse the universe of the evil. They are less interested in fighting each other. We saw this a lot when BFA first got announced. People weren't that excited until they had a Night Elf roast hosted by Jeff Ross. Even now, many Horde players don't hate the Alliance, they hate Sylvanas. Now, there are plenty of players that do feel tied to their faction, but you wait your damn turn, alright? Your parallel's not on the screen yet. Can we take a moment? Because Tsar Fang is sitting on what I assume is like a stone bench, and I have a computer chair that I sit in, which is arguably much better than a stone bench, but after a few hours my ass does some hurting. So how long has he been sitting there? I cannot imagine what this poor orc boy's butt is going through. But I'm sorry for interrupting. Continue.
At Lordaeron, you had the chance to take my life. Maybe even end the war.
And would you look at that, Anduin really is the bravest little cherub on the block. Tsar Fang could end his life in a second.
Why didn't you kill me?
Could kill you now.
I spared you because I believed you have honor. Was I wrong? Do you want more innocents to suffer? The Horde...
I have given everything for the Horde! Bled for it, killed for it, and Sylvanas is destroying it. She will destroy everything. What I want is my Horde back.
First off, I would like to commend not only the sound design team, but the voice actors as well. The atmospheric echoing we're hearing off the cell walls, mixed with the contrast between the bassiness of Tsar Fang's voice and the higher and calmer pitch of Anduin's voice, sets a scene amazingly, only using sound. And as someone who has loved film and film techniques for a long time, that really tickles my butt cheeks. But I think that the line that Tsar Fang says here is one of the most important things for Horde players to hear right now. I imagine that this resonates pretty hard with the second camp of players that I mentioned. If someone is a tried and true Horde or Alliance player, I think Tsar Fang embodies the ideals that a lot of those players have. They have spent the years killing, dying, and working hard for their faction, and now for Horde players, a war chief they didn't ask for is leading them down a path that they don't approve of. I mean, look back just 3 months when a lot of Horde players were taking off their shoulder pads in solidarity with Tsar Fang, which, by the way, if you look at the story interview that Lost Codex did, had a pretty big effect.
To speak to the feedback part of it real quick as well, like, not only do we like read forums, listen to the communities, like understand what's happening, but one of the most powerful and inspirational pieces of feedback we actually got to take us down this path were when people removed their shoulder pads. Like, that was a big moment, and that wasn't in a forum, that wasn't talks, that was a really powerful moment when the community just said, we want a choice, and this is how we're going to make that choice. Right. And what better way for us than to actually deliver that fantasy of saying, okay, we heard you, we want to give you that choice in game.
However, not everyone hates Sylvanas. Some people like playing the character that is chaotic or immoral. Sylvanas is not without her own backing, which in my mind begs 2 questions. How does the Horde canonically feel about the Forsaken, and what is Blizzard gonna do with these 2 sides of the Horde that they are clearly creating? And WoW's creative director, Alex Afraziabi, said this during the WoW Q&A.
However, if it's, do I want to back the Banshee Queen, or do I want to back Tsar Fang, that's an interesting choice. That is your choice. And we want to make sure that we do have repercussions for the actions you've taken, and that it does go somewhere. So right now what we're really kind of doing is testing the waters. And we want to make sure, though, anytime you are presented with that type of a choice, that it has, that it matters.
He also said it again several times in many interviews and such, all across BlizzCon. So the speculators and the people who are subscribing to the 3 faction idea are having a field day. I have no idea where this is going, but this is more player choice and interaction and deviation than we have ever seen. And I think that is awesome. I think that is amazing. And I'm so excited to see where this is going. But before I get too carried away, let's get back to the cinematic.
Tsar Fang, tell me why you spared my life.
I hoped you would stop her.
I can't. Not alone.
So there it is, another amazing cinematic by that team at Blizzard, and it's so chock full of things to talk about. I honestly don't think that I have ever been so invested in where WoW is going, the choices that people are able to make, or just the direction of the story in general, and I have been playing this game for 13 years. This type of player agency, like I said, is something we have never seen before, and at this point, it could actually change the structure of the game itself. And if the Horde splits in 2, what happens to the players who liked Sylvanas? Did they just get pigeonholed into following Tsar Fang? I wouldn't think so, because people being forced to follow Sylvanas is what caused all this controversy in the first place. I think the time is right for some major changes to come to WoW. The newer players are pretty disillusioned by the faction war already, and those that are diehard devoted to their side, at least on the Horde side, are having to make some pretty serious decisions. The WoW team has some serious choices to make, and I'm super excited to see what they decide. But if you have some opinions, go ahead and throw them at me. And that's it for this video, so until next time,
Watch your back.
Swear to God, Jen? The soldiers out on the dock are the last that Stormwind has to offer, and Fluffy Boy Incarnate, Dab.